In 2019, a personal trainer named Marcus invested his life savings, door 180,000, into a dream his own boutique gym. 3 years later, that gym is gone. The doors closed. The equipment was sold at auction, and Marcus went back to working as a trainer at someone else's gym. But the interesting part of this story doesn't start here, because on the same street, another boutique gym opened the same year is still standing and currently generates 1.2 million in annual revenue. Same industry, same city, same month, almost the same starting capital. So why did one fail and the other get rich? On social media, I opened my own gym. Videos always show the same moment: opening day, cutting the ribbon, smiling faces. Nobody shows Tuesday morning of the third year. That moment when you check your bank account to see if there's rent money. In this video, we're going to break down the real math of opening a boutique gym, the side nobody shows on social media, from start to finish, minute by minute. And in the end, you'll learn exactly 3 things that Marcus's competitor didn't know, but did anyway. First, let's look at the big picture. The global fitness industry is a market exceeding 100 billion a year, and the fastest growing segment post-pandemic is not giant chains, it's boutique studios. Why? Because consumer behavior has changed. People no longer just want to work out somewhere, they want to belong to a community. A member who pays 30 L a month at a large chain is willing to pay 200 a month at a boutique studio, because in return, they are known by name, their trainer recognizes them, and they take small group classes. That's the emotional side of the business. But the math of the business model tells a completely different story. A low volume, high price model means that every single customer loss is a much heavier blow. Losing 50 members at a large chain is statistical noise. Losing 50 members at a boutique studio could mean losing half the business. Let's return to Marcus's story, because the details matter here. Marcus spent 8 years coaching in other people's gyms. Every month he saw hundreds of clients, developed his own methods, and accumulated a loyal client base, some of whom followed him for years. In 2019, he thought, why am I leaving this revenue to my boss? And he was right. He had the experience needed to start his own business. But that is where the first critical mistake began. Marcus knew the coaching side of the business to perfection, but he knew nothing about the business side. He didn't hire a lawyer when signing the lease agreement. He took the equipment loan from the first bank that offered it, without comparing the terms. And most importantly, he made an emotional decision when choosing a location, saying, this place felt warm to me. Without even looking at a demographic data spreadsheet, we can say that location choice alone determines 40% of success or failure in the boutique fitness business. Because this business is built on walking distance and visibility. Marcus chose a quiet neighborhood far from the city center because the rent was cheap: 200 square meters for 6,000 allos in a month. His competitor, even though the rent was twice as expensive, at 13,000 a month, chose a spot within walking distance of 3 large office buildings, an exit from a university campus, and a busy public transit stop. At first glance, Marcus seems to have acted smarter. Lower rent, lower risk. But the reality is lower rent means lower foot traffic, and lower foot traffic means the marketing budget for a boutique gym has to multiply exponentially. His competitor's gym reached half its capacity in the very first month of opening, because people walking by on the street were curious and walked in. Marcus's didn't even reach a quarter of its capacity in 6 months, because nobody was even walking down that street. Now let's come to the real question: how much does it actually cost to open a boutique gym? Equipment alone ranges between $60,000 to $100,000, especially when premium brand machines, weight systems, and digital tracking systems come into the picture. Tenant improvements, which is the construction to transform an empty space into a gym. Flooring, shower systems, ventilation, cost between $40,000 to $80,000. Licenses, business permits, liability insurance, and membership tracking software subscriptions add another $10,000 to $15,000. To these, you need to add what is called initial working capital, which is the cash reserve to cover expenses for the first 3 to 4 months, while revenue is insufficient. This is usually $20,000 to $30,000. In total, the money spent before opening the doors is typically between $150,000 and $250,000. Marcus spent exactly $180,000, right in the middle of the industry average, even a bit conservative. So his problem wasn't the size of the budget. The problem was where and how that money went. Especially that he hadn't kept his working capital reserve large enough. Opening the door is just when the real struggle begins. Rent in an average city runs $8,000 to $15,000 a month. Trainer salaries, especially since you need to pay competitive wages so you don't lose a good trainer, because in boutique gyms clients usually connect with a trainer rather than the facility, run $20,000 to $30,000 a month. Between insurance, cleaning, electricity, water, equipment maintenance, and music licensing, monthly fixed expenses generally climb to between $35,000 and $50,000. That means Marcus's gym, the moment it opens its doors every month, has to cover about $40,000 before making a profit. That comes out to roughly $300 a day. Money coming out of your pocket the second the lights turn on, before any member payments come in. And here is a detail that most new business owners overlook. Almost all of these expenses are fixed, meaning whether you have 10 members or 100. The rent is the same every month, and so are most of the trainer salaries. This means the money you pay each month during a low occupancy period is nearly identical to the money you pay during a high occupancy period. Only your revenue is different. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Elena, the owner of the rival studio. Elena came from a different background than Marcus. She had previously run a small cafe, meaning she had experience in customer experience and cash flow management, but she was new to the fitness industry. The interesting part, Elena wasn't as talented at training as Marcus. In fact, when she started, she couldn't even teach classes on her own and hired external trainers. But Elena knew one thing very well: the numbers. For 3 months before opening, she did nothing but market research, examining population density in the area, average income, competitor pricing, and even the shift hours of office workers in the region. She negotiated the rent, gathered offers from 3 different banks, and chose the one offering the most flexible payment schedule. And her most critical decision, by biting the bullet on high rent, she saved herself from the marketing costs that low foot traffic would have brought. How does the revenue side work? In boutique gyms, the real profit doesn't come from single memberships, but from package sales: monthly unlimited memberships, 10 class packs, personal training sessions, and sometimes auxiliary revenues, such as supplement sales, apparel, and special events. The average member pays $150 to $250 a month. However, the critical point here is the capacity utilization rate. If a class has a capacity of 20 people, and you are only holding classes with 8 people each time, you are covering the exact same trainer salary with much less revenue. The trainer's cost is fixed, but the revenue is variable. Elena's studio achieved an average capacity utilization of 85% right from the start, because it received organic foot traffic thanks to its location and ran a trial week campaign on social media in its first month. Marcus's gym, on the other hand, never managed to exceed 35% capacity, same price, same quality of classes, but it was losing money every day, as if it were renting out a half-empty room. Now let's put the numbers side by side. In Elena's studio, 200 members pay an average of $180. That means $36,000 in monthly revenue, plus extra class packages and product sales, bringing the total to around $45,000. Monthly expenses are $38,000. That is a net profit of about $7,000 every month. A quite healthy margin for the first year. In Marcus's studio, however, 70 members pay an average of $170, only $12,000 in revenue per month. But his expenses are still around $40,000, because rent and trainer salaries are fixed. This means he was running a deficit of $28,000 every month. To reach the break-even point, he needed at least 235 members, a figure far beyond his capacity, an almost impossible target to reach. Here is where things get complicated. Because Marcus didn't give up. In his second year, he completely changed his strategy. Realizing he couldn't change his location, he shifted to a neighborhood-first model instead of a large advertising budget. He made special discount agreements with 5 surrounding apartment complexes, bartered with local businesses, and hosted free community days instead of free trial weeks. This strategy really worked. The occupancy rate jumped from 35% to 60%, and the monthly deficit dropped from $28,000 to $9,000. Marcus's story seemed right here to be turning into a comeback story. And most people watching the video probably thought, so he succeeded. Right at this point. But at the beginning of the third year, the balloon payment on the equipment loan came due $45,000, all at once, on a single invoice. Marcus knew about this payment the day he signed the loan. But he hadn't even thought 3 years ahead, because his only concern that day was just being able to open the doors. Right at that moment, a business that was improving steadily month by month shut down due to a single cash flow mistake. The problem wasn't the model. The problem wasn't the marketing strategy either. The problem was the clash between the growth timeline and the debt repayment schedule.